right. Hey, new community parents. Super happy to have everybody here tuning in. This is a follow-up conversation to parent conversations and the conversations that we've been having due to the questions that you guys have been asking. Today with us, we have Tiara Sargeant, and she's an awesome panelist that's going to help us talk a little bit about race relationships and relations outside and how to better equip us as parents and leaders in our community to talk with students and children regarding what's going on outside. Tiara, do us a favor and introduce yourself a little bit to our parents so they could get to know you and maybe talk a little bit about what you do and what the journey has been like to get to where you are today.
Yeah. My name is Tiara Sargeant. I am a member of New Community. My parents are Jermaine and Avril Sargeant. And currently I am the advisor for student group on race relations at Shaker Heights High School. So each day I get to work with high school students and provide programming and resources to our community around race relations, and really work hand in hand with wonderful students who are very reflective in this work. So I was involved in SCORE, we call it, when I was in high school. So I graduated from Shaker in 2014 and then went to Hampton University and recently graduated in 2018. And so while I was in high school, I read this book called The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And I would say that was my wake-up call to all of the injustices that were going on in my high school, in the community, in the world. And then I start seeing those injustices firsthand, just with the treatment of Black students, the segregation amongst classrooms, the lack of minority teachers in the high school. And I became very angry about what was going on and what I was seeing in my own community. And so that anger really turned into like activism work where I would talk with my peers about it, try to educate my peers on what was going on.
Yeah.
By the end of senior year, I would say my righteous anger became pretty bitter, and I created this petition to try to get some people fired from the school, and it was just a lot going on. And so when I got to Hampton and with my parents and just kind of developing a deeper relationship with Christ, I was able to channel that activism into like, how can I really seek reconciliation? Because I think throughout my whole high school journey, I was just trying to win.
Yeah.
And that's not really what we're called to do as believers. We're called to seek reconciliation, not to win this battle, but seek how can we reconcile with our other brothers and sisters. And so that's where I am now, where I really want to seek reconciliation with white sisters and brothers. I really want to show my students the power of love, grace, and nurturing relationships, and how that could seek change as well. And also really educating the community on what the hard work that needs to be done as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey.
That is so awesome. What a cool story. I love how your parents were involved and just how really God used that righteous anger that was building up. And even though it had its downturns and all of that, God has ultimately redeemed that into something so beautiful, that you're doing the work that you're doing in local high schools to seek reconciliation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sarah, we've had a lot of questions come in from parents with a range of topics, really. And I know that we had talked a little bit beforehand. I wanted to get into a little bit of help for the parents who are struggling with students with regards to peer pressure. A lot of students nowadays in high school, as I'm sure you're aware, they're facing a lot of peer pressure, and parents are really struggling to help their student, and they really don't know what to do. Like, what to do when my student is constantly bombarded by stuff on social media, constantly bombarded by friends that are encouraging them to do things that they know are wrong or the parents would not want their student involved in. And some of the students have just gone maybe wayward. What would you say to help parents who are struggling with that issue of peer pressure?
Yeah, so the first thing that I would say to parents is, one, to like really stay strong in your faith. I think there were a lot of moments when I was being brought up in my household, and even I have a little brother who's 15, and I see my parents raising them. My parents really stay strong. So my mom wakes up daily with her gospel music going. She's on a prayer call, or she's talking to one of her accountability partners, or someone, the Lutens from her small group. And my dad, every morning, I see him studying his word, coming out of the library praying. So really staying strong and really believing that Jesus and God has this, like, this part of the life in control, like Jesus and God are in control. So
Yeah.
that's number one. But then also, I think my parents really gave us a lot of autonomy to fail. So even in high school, when I had like that righteous anger that turned to bitterness, they let me grow from that experience and see how that was going to help and shape me grow as a leader. So giving your, still setting boundaries and rules, and having your students respect you, but also really making sure that you're giving them that freedom to fail, because for them to truly learn from their mistakes and from what is going on, they're going to have to fail, and you cannot save and rescue them from everything. So like even in college, like I had experiences where I think my parents probably wouldn't be proud of, like with drinking too much alcohol and
Yeah.
whatever that's leading to.
Yeah.
And so, but I had to experience that to be the point of where I am today, where I can truly handle alcohol.
Yeah.
Or if I say no, and setting boundaries to that alcohol, that drinking alcohol. So you really have to let your students learn and grow from their failures and see where they go from there. So yeah.
I love how you talked about it's not you just let them go off a cliff on their own, but
Yeah.
setting boundaries, but also not setting so much that you're just immediately on top of them, controlling them,
Yeah.
where they're never getting the experience to fail. And I love how you often said to me, Tiara, about the importance of reflective questions. Can you talk about that and how your parents perhaps can, and other parents can help their student by asking reflective questions to help guide them a little bit?
Yeah, so I think that you can't, I mean, your child is going out into to the world, so
Yeah,
you can't really control everything they're doing, they're listening to, sing.
yeah,
So for example, Jaden, my little brother, he listens to different types of music.
yeah,
Do I agree with all the music that he listens to? No, not at all. But having that conversation with Jaden, hey Jaden, what is this? What does this lyric mean? Like, what is this person saying in this song? Like, what does it mean? How does that, how do you connect to that? Like, what do you think of that? Do you think that's right or wrong? So for example, Jaden and I had a pretty intense conversation about J. Cole and his tweets a couple months ago, and like what we thought about, like he had a different point of view, but and I gave him that space, and I authentically told him how I felt about the tweets and how I felt like it was degrading women.
yeah,
So just giving opportunities for them to express themselves, and then also allowing them to hear your perspective. And I'm sure Jaden went upstairs to his room and really did think about further about what I was saying.
yeah.
So yeah, giving them space to say however they feel, and not just saying this is wrong or this is right. And giving them moments to reflect as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I love that. I love that. Tara, I think that's a really awesome segue into our following question. With the work that you do specifically with race relations, I have a lot of parents who have both, children that are younger, sometimes even like 3 to 8 years old, right? And then there are some parents who have students. I wanted to address parents who have students and then parents who have children. And
Mhm.
really get you to speak to these parents and maybe help them on how they can start to process what's going on outside, and then how can they help their students and then their children process what's going on, and maybe even introduce their children to the topic of racism and all of that sort of stuff to help them understand. And so maybe we can start off with students. What would you say to a parent of a teenager who's really struggling to talk with their student around the issues of racism and what's really been highlighted in social media in the past recent months?
Yeah, so I think first, again, going back to the point that I said earlier, is making sure that you understand that God is in control of the situation and that there's going to be a finish line one
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
So, and keeping that daily reminder in your household as well. But
yeah,
I think it's processing with your child. So, in your teenager. So, telling your child like what I saw on the news was not okay, and I'm very frustrated and I'm angry.
yeah,
So, I watched all of CNN that night where the police headquarters was getting burnt down. I was with my parents watching that, and I saw them sad and grieving for this community and everything that was going on. So that allowed me to even feel that it is okay to be sad. It is okay to be hurt that your community is going through that. So
yeah,
I think as parents, you have to show your child that it's okay to feel these emotions, and you have to show them that you're feeling these emotions and
yeah,
say, like, I am frustrated, I am sad, and this is grieving me.
yeah,
And so then having those open conversations of like, how can we use our voice in our home to overcome that? So, like, what can we do? So, for example, for me, it's school or education. Jaden, it's music. He loves music. My dad, he also loves music, but he also loves talking about finances and investment. So, talking about different ways that we can use our voices and our gifts to make a difference in these areas where our communities are burdened by these issues that
yeah,
we constantly going through. So one, showing that you are feeling these emotions and you're grieving with your child and it's okay to grieve. And then two, showing them and redirecting them about how they can use their gifts and talents to make a change in the community.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. With regards to students, how have you been seeing students respond working with high school students
Yeah.
yourself? And it seems like they really are aware of what's going on outside. So it's not like they're oblivious to it. Um, Sometimes they just respond in very outwardly angry things. How are you helping students in the work that you do? And how would you encourage a parent to steer and guide their student? Um,
Yes. So I will have to say that I have fantastic students. So my students are very reflective and they're pretty mature. And
yeah,
so I think it goes to that point. Like I've really been able to, and I think parents really should do this, is really cultivating their gifts and understanding what their passions are. So
yeah,
every Sunday night, I meet with about 20 to 25 students in a living room, well, now Zoom meetings, and they're all there for this common issue of we have these race related issues. But one on one, I get to know what are their passions and gifts.
yeah,
So one of my students, she loves art. Like
yeah,
she loves painting. She was recognized for her artwork. And so this summer, I connected her with a community group that created lawn chairs. And so she was able to express her feelings through painting on this lawn chair about the intersectionality of Black women. So
uh,
just really cultivating those gifts and then connecting that with their purpose. So that's how my students have been reacting. Some of my students have created white affinity groups, but if we're being honest, there have been some very raw moments where they become very angry, frustrated. One of my students called me because she walked out of her house because she just felt like her parents weren't understanding where she was coming from and where her frustration was coming from. And
yeah,
I think that was an opportunity for her parents to really connect with her and say that I'm having these same emotions as well. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's going on as well. And just being real and authentic with them. So you don't have to be picture perfect all the time for your children. I think it's beautiful when parents can cry in front of their children. I don't
yeah.
think that the first time we should see our parents crying is at our grandparents' funeral. Like we should see them going through these raw emotions every single day. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so good, Tara. Thank you so much. And another thing, I know talking with students is one thing, but what would you say to parents who maybe have children that are a lot younger, and maybe these children are a little bit on the innocent side? They haven't really been exposed to the same levels of racism or awareness that this is even a problem. and maybe the parent just hasn't had an opportunity to talk with them yet. How do you equip these parents with small children and all of that?
Yeah, I think with small children, the beauty is their innocence, but you
Yeah.
can really help them develop their identity. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times that when kids grow up, they think that being Black is the problem, like,
Yeah.
or whatever is that's the problem. That's why they're receiving that treatment. And you were saying earlier, you were connecting it to sin, like it's the heart is sin of the issues.
Yeah.
So really with younger children, first like showing them the value like in our household, like being Black is amazing, like
Yeah.
you need to be proud of being Black,
Yeah.
talking about all of the heritage like within our own family. So my great grandmother's 104, so we have a lot of lineage and stories that we can hear, and talking to my grandmother who's in her late 70s and hearing the stories of her mother and her grandmother. So
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about those beautiful stories with our in our own family, and then talking about the superheroes in the Black community, like all of
Yeah.
the people who are doing wonderful stuff, and
Yeah.
not just your Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, but even Carl Stokes in our own community,
Yeah.
Judge Lauren Moore, who is a wonderful judge. So really celebrating the beauty of your culture in your house. And obviously, I am very proud of this because I went to a historically Black college. So I'm really big on celebrating Blackness. So showing them that there's nothing wrong with being Black. And
Yeah.
that the reason why that Blacks are getting mistreated is because of someone's heart and the sin that they are exhibiting. But
Yeah.
being Black is beautiful. And then also exposing them and introducing them to a young age about what is going on. I
Yeah.
think in your household, you have to discern what you're going to show your kids and what you're not. You know your child's maturity better than I do.
Yeah.
But reading different books, there's a book called Daddy's There's Noise Outside, and it's about different protests that are going outside of their house. So
Wow.
reading different children's books that might address these issues. I don't know if you want to show the news, but say, hey, this is what happened on the news. So I know a close family friend who did show her young children about the killings of George Floyd. When
Yeah.
her child was able to express that he was feeling fatigue about everything and that he just wanted to be a kid.
Yeah.
So I think it's discerning, but what resources and how you want to introduce the topic, but
Yeah.
never avoiding those issues,
Yeah.
because if you avoid it, then the world is going to have to teach it, and it's better if they're taught this in their house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so good, Tira. I love that last bit. Like really, avoidance is not a way to deal with this, but
Yeah.
rather having conversations early that are age appropriate, and discerning the maturity of your child and saying, man, there are resources out there on the internet, this book, right? Daddy, there's noise outside, like introducing your child to the topics of protest, why people are protesting. And then ultimately you tied it perfectly. I think that this is a sin issue, and introducing your child to sin, what sin is, and how really it's even beyond skin tone, but a problem that we're all born into and born with,
Mhm.
where we're people regardless of skin tone are just mean to one another. Maybe that would be appropriate for a 4 or 5 year old. That's like, hey, yeah, they are people that are mean to one another, and sometimes it's white people who are mean to black people or vice versa or whatever. But introducing them to that topic early on, in an age appropriate way, I think is so helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And so, Tiara, last bit, I know you talked a little bit about going to a historically Black college. I thought that was a really, really awesome segue. There are a lot of parents who are thinking about college and want to prepare their student best for college. What would you say are some of the helpful things that your parents maybe did for you, or what would you recommend parents do to prepare their student for college, and all of that?
Yeah, so if anyone knows my father, he's like a very strategic man. Um, so when we were doing college tours, we actually did the majority of my college tours in a week. So we visited about 15 schools in that week, which is pretty absurd. My guidance counselor was like, "Why are you guys doing it?"
Uh,
But so really like exposing your child to all of the options and all of the possibilities. I
yeah,
think that I'm a huge advocate. No, I know that I'm a huge advocate for HBCUs.
yeah,
And if my parents wouldn't have exposed me to HBCUs, I probably wouldn't have gone to one because in my school, HBCUs weren't promoted. So
yeah,
really exposing your child to all of the possibilities, taking them to Ohio State and then taking them to an Oberlin, then taking them to maybe Central State if they want to stay in Ohio. But if they don't, then going to Harvard, going to Princeton, going to Hampton, going to Alabama State University. So it was when I was exposed to everything that I was able to really discern and decide what I wanted. So
yeah,
my story is since going up to 12th grade, I thought I was going to Howard University. I visited the campus many times.
yeah,
And then I went to Hampton and I was like, oh, I want to go here. And it was just because Hampton was secluded. I felt nurtured, and that was the environment that I needed for me. So just really like exposing your child to all of the possibilities. And when I went to Tuskegee, I was like, oh, mom, I don't want to go to Tuskegee. When I went to Miami University, I was like, yeah, no, not going to Miami. It's not the culture. So making sure that you're exposing them to all of the possibilities, having open conversations, not limiting them. I'm thankful because my parents did not limit me because of finances.
yeah,
Um, I mean, my parents truly had faith. Like, there's no reason why I got through Hampton but God, because Hampton is so expensive. So the small groups would be praying that I could get my bill cleared. So really not limiting your child
yeah.
to because of finances. So saying, hey, if you want to go to Hampton, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to put scholarships in. You're going to have to find interest-free loans and really making sure that they're doing their due diligence and going to the school that they want to, but not saying, hey, you can't go here because it's too expensive.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's so 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 good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tara, this has been a really awesome conversation. I want to leave on a couple of different notes and just really wrap up our conversation with asking, could you share some of the really helpful just memories that you have of growing up and like some helpful things that your parents did for you, like you're constantly seeing your dad in Bible study and coming out in prayer, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe there are a couple memories that you think as distinctly and you want to share, and it helps parents think like, wow, like here's a moment that impacted a young child really deep into
Yeah.
her college years and beyond.
Yeah, I would say two memories. Like my favorite memory, like some of my favorite memories are obviously Saturday morning and hearing my dad play his music.
Yeah.
So that I love hearing my dad's music and what he listened to back in the day, and also obviously my mom's music as well. And then like one memory is doing mission trips with my parents.
Wow.
So both of my parents and I we went to Pine Ridge, South Dakota to serve at a Native American reservation. And it
Wow.
was very powerful to one serve and help this community with my parents. But at the end of the trip, the program that we went through, we do a foot washing service to
Oh wow.
so see my parents washing feet, and I was able to wash my best friend's feet and
Yeah.
just experience that whole trip together. Was really powerful. So it's like the service aspects and then like the fun cultural things that we do in our household. Yeah.
Wow. So, so, so cool. Well, Tara, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. We can't thank you enough as a new community family for taking a part to be here with us and for really pouring yourself out and your life into these parents. These parents are extremely grateful to have you just come and share with us a little bit of the knowledge and experiences that God has allowed for you to gain. We just can't thank you enough. So just thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, parents, thank you so much for joining us. We just want to wish you well. We're going to have a couple of the resources that Tiara mentioned. We're going to be putting them up on the website and perhaps sending some emails out for you to recommend some children's books and other articles and stuff like that to help your students and children become more aware of what's going on and how to have conversations with them. Again, just leave some comments, encourage Tiara, thank her for being here, and then continue this conversation at home. It doesn't end here. And make sure you're coming out to our following parent conversations and all that we're putting out on Facebook. All right, Tiara. Well, thank you so much. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
everyone. Let's wave to the parents. Thanks for joining us, guys.